All right, welcome everyone. If we can go to the next slide. Thank you. I am Lynette. I'm the library marketer for Harlequin Trade Publishing. Welcome to Bookstravaganza Homecoming. Just to give you a quick rundown of how the rest of the hour will go, we'll start as always with a marketing presentation of titles. Then we'll offer up a winter 22 sneak peek at Jacqueline Michard's novel, The Good Son. And finally, the real reason why you're all here, you'll meet Jacqueline and our other panelists as they speak on the theme of homecoming. One quick note, unfortunately, Nancy Jian Kim is sick. She won't be able to join us today, but we'll still be talking a bit about her book in the first half of the hour. So she'll definitely be with us, be with us in spirit. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. There's a sneak peek at our authors and our presenters. Next slide, please. Thank you. The next library reads deadline is coming up. October is an insanely packed list for us. These are just a handful of the titles we recommend for your voting consideration. Tales from the Cafe is a standalone follow-up to another library reads pick, Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. It's about a little cafe where a very specific seat and a specially poured cup of coffee gives the drinker the ability to travel in time to a single moment of their choice. Alison Stein's Trashlands just earned its 2nd star review. Booklist says, I quote, Philip K. Dick award winner Stein sets this searing exploration of the lives of women who are mired in grinding poverty in a climate-ravaged future where plastic has become humanity's only currency. The sordid strip club Trashlands in flood-prone Scrapalacia serves as the narrative hub. This painful, thought-provoking apocalypse noir fires on all cylinders. April in Spain is John Bamble's deliciously atmospheric and slow burn standalone that reunites fan-favorite characters Detective Stratford and Dr. Quirk. Quirk's starred review of the title calls it great fun from a masterful writer. PW recently gave Mallory O'Meara's Girly Drinks, which I've been touting as a historical drinking tour around the world, a starred review, calling it a thorough and thoroughly entertaining history. And finally, Sisters from the Great War by master storyteller Suzanne Feldman was inspired by the journals of the young woman who volunteered on the Belgian front during World War I. It is about the unbreakable bond between two sisters who volunteer in Europe and fall in love, one with a doctor, one with another woman in the ambulance corps. And I'm going to turn it over to Amy with one of my favorite slides in the presentation.
Perfect. All right. So thanks, Lynette. And hello, everyone. I'm just so happy to be here today to share with you a few of our upcoming titles. And on this slide, it feels kind of strange to be talking about this because it's sunny and warm outside, but the snowy holidays aren't that far away. And in good news, you'll see on this slide that we have a powerhouse lineup of holiday titles in exclusive library hardcover format. So I won't talk about all of these books, but I did just want to highlight a few, and feel free to chime in the chat if any of these titles you're specifically looking forward to. So first up, A Virgin River Christmas. So with the recent launch of season 3 of the #1 Netflix series, we're releasing a special tie-in edition of A Virgin River Christmas. So readers will love experiencing the snowy holidays in the charming town of Virgin River with the cast of characters and readers that viewers have come to love. So definitely want to highlight that. The next title is The Christmas Wedding Guest, which will be releasing at the end of September. And we couldn't have a library presentation without highlighting Susan Mallory, given her incredible library reads Hall of Fame status. Hopefully you didn't just hear my dog shaking in the background. But continuing on, the last title I wanted to highlight is The Matzo Ball by Jean Meltzer. This is a novel about a nice Jewish girl with a secret. She absolutely loved Christmas. For a decade, she's hidden her career as a best-selling Christmas romance novelist from her family. And with that talent, it has made her that best-selling author, even though her chronic illness has always kept the kind of love she writes about out of reach. That is until she's forced to write a Hanukkah romance, which sends her to the Matzo Ball for inspiration. It's a high-end Jewish music celebration run by her summer camp arch enemy, Jacob. This is a laugh out loud rom-com. It's fresh, it's funny, and it's frankly the exciting and entertaining escape we all need right now. So switching gears a little bit onto the next slide, you'll see Forever Home by Lisa Whistler. Forever Home follows a retired Marine looking for a place to call her own and start the rest of her life, earning the trust of an abandoned dog and the heart of a local detective along the way. Heartwarming and perfect for fans of Robin Carr and Susan Mallory. This is great women's fiction to read. This is actually the second book in her Dogwood County series after her debut last summer of Rescue You. And then switching gears completely is Fan Club by debut author Erin Mayer. This is a psychological thriller about a millennial office worker who finds relief from her crippling boredom of her day job in life to really embrace a cliquey fan club for a big pop star. That is until she discovers that the group of women is bound together by something much darker than just devotion. It's perfect for readers of They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman, The Lion's Den by Catherine St. John. And the author herself brings a lot to this release, given her incredible media connections. She is a freelance writer whose work has appeared in Business Insider, Man Repeller, LitHub, and she was previously a fashion and beauty editor at Bustle.com. So I think Laurie Elizabeth Flynn, who is the best-selling author of The Girls Are All So Nice Here, said it best. Twisty and suspenseful, loaded with sharp social commentary, Fan Club is both a thriller and a modern-day millennial anthem. Stylish, hypnotic, and impossible to put down. Meet your new obsession. And I'll pass it over to Randy.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. I'm excited to talk about Wildcat by John Boessenaker. And the subtitle of this book says it all, The Untold Story of Pearl Hart, the Wild West's most notorious female bandit. So we know an awful lot about the Wild West and the men from that era, but little is known about Pearl, a bandit who disguised herself as a man and held up a stagecoach in Arizona by gunpoint in 1899. Pearl Hart became a media sensation and the most notorious female outlaw on the Western frontier. So very little is known about her life and her crimes until now. Drawing on groundbreaking research into territorial records and genealogical data, Wildcat is the first book to uncover the enigma of Pearl Hart and her trailblazing ways. This is history that reads like a harrowing novel. I can almost see a TV series or a movie being made out of Pearl's wild life. And our next book is Powder Days, Ski Bums, Ski Towns, and the Future of Chasing Snow. If you're a skier or no one, you'll understand that skiing is not just a sport, it's an identity. So our author, Heather Hansman, who's written for every major US ski publication over the past 20 years, has given us the definitive book on skiing. She talks about her own years as a ski bum, but also the history of the sport and the major skiers in history. She explores problems of gender and race within the sport and the threat that climate change poses to the future of skiing. But above all else, Powder Days is a true celebration of skiing, written from a place of wonder and awe. If you've done well with books like Barbarian Days by William Finnegan or The Wave by Susan Casey, you'll do great with this book. And as the editor calls it, this is Friday Night Lights for skiing.
Okay, and now for something a little different. Hi, my name is Pamela Oste, and I'm a marketing manager with HTP Books. This is Nanny Dearest. So if you love domestic suspense, this book is really for you and your patrons. Nanny Dearest is by debut author Flora Collins. It takes place in upstate New York, where Sue Keller has just lost her father and is in need of comfort. She reconnects with her childhood nanny named Annie, and they quickly become inseparable. The catch? She starts to uncover the truth about Annie's unsettling time in the Keller house all those years ago, particularly the manner of her departure or dismissal. At the same time, she begins to grow increasingly alarmed for the safety of the two new charges currently in Annie's care. This book is an absolute page turner, perfect for fans of The Turn of the Key and The Perfect Nanny, as well as fans of Taryn Fisher, Ruth Ware, and Sherry Lapina. It's told in alternating points of view, Annie in the mid-90s and Sue in the present day, and it's a taut novel of suspense that will keep readers turning the pages right up to the shocking end.
Okay, on to The Mother Next Door by Tara Laskowski. This is Big Little Lies territory. And in this thriller, the women of Ivy Woods Drive are planning their annual Halloween block party when they receive messages threatening to expose the dark secrets of their neighborhood. As the tagline says, good mothers never show their feelings, never spill their secrets, never admit to murder. Our author, Tara Laskowski, is a rising star in the thriller genre. You may remember her debut, One Night Only. It won 3 awards, including the Agatha Award, and was nominated for many others, including the Strand Critics Award. And if you like Lisa Jewell or Mary Kubica, you'll love Tara Laskowski. Thanks.
The Secret of Snow. So Viola Shipman's books are always heartwarming and cozy, and really what's cozier than a winter themed novel? As comforting and as familiar as a favorite sweater, Viola Shipman's first holiday novel is a promise of heartfelt family traditions, humorously real experience, and the enduring power of love and friendship. It's about a Southern Californian meteorologist named Sunny who decamps to her Northern Michigan hometown to a new gig at her hometown station after a professional embarrassment. While there, she attempts to reacclimate to the painfully long, dark winters dominated by a Michigan phenomenon known as lake effect snow. I think many in Toronto will know about that. But beyond the complete physical shock to her system, she's also forced to confront her past, including her new boss and mortal frenemy, the death of a younger sister who loved the snow, and the mother who caused Sunny to leave. Along the way, she meets a charming widowed father who spurs her to restart her life in ways she never expected. The Secret of Snow is as touching and heartwarming, very much in the vein of novels by Nancy Thayer and Jenny Colgan. It's guaranteed to make you laugh and cry as you're immersed into a world of sisterhood, grief, and starting over in a very snowy town. And then on to the Rose Bend series, and in particular, Christmas in Rose Bend. So I won't go too much into the plot because I know that Naima will describe it shortly, but I will say, so it's Christmas time and badass big city nurse Nessa Hunt was already a Scrooge to begin with. But this holiday season, Nessa is also reeling from the loss of her mother and her mother's deathbed confession. The man that Nessa thought was her late father isn't. Now Nessa's hitting the road with her resentful teen half-sister Ivy to seek answers in Rose Bend, a small town where, to Nessa's horror, the festivities are like Christmas on steroids. She's also about to learn pretty quickly about the beating heart of the town is the huge raucous family of Mo and Ian Dennison, the owners of the inn where Nessa and Ivy will be spending Christmas. But Nessa is drawn in particular to the Dennison's rugged son, Wolfgang. This is, of course, a love story between Nessa and Wolf, and a very steamy one at that. But it's also a beautiful love story between two sisters who will learn to become a family with bonds stronger than even blood. If you're new to Rose Bend, this is a sparkling holiday charmer. It's the perfect entry, and don't miss the other titles in the series seen here. Thank you.
Okay, Last Girl Ghosted, Lisa Unger. So this book is perfect for fans of Karen Slaughter, Lucy Foley, Ruth Ware, just really anybody who loves their mystery thrillers. We are riding high on the heels of Confessions on the 745. It was a huge success. Just a reminder, it was a Library Reads pick and an Indie Next pick, and my goodness, an all-around fantastic book. And in the same vein, Last Girl Ghosted will not disappoint. It has a fantastic, somewhat timely plot about a young woman in New York City who gets ghosted by a guy that she's been dating. And she met him on an online dating app. So that happens. But when she starts to look for him, she falls down a rabbit hole of secrets and lies. And the tagline, I think, is fantastic. You can see it here. Think twice before you swipe. We are incredibly excited about this book. It is Lisa at her finest. And I warn you, you should prepare to read it in one sitting. Be ready for that. And then next up is The Last Story of Mina Lee. This was a fantastic debut novel. It came out in 2020, and we now have the paperback edition releasing in December. So we're super excited about that. It was Reese's book club pick, and it hit the New York Times bestseller list. So it has some really great accolades behind it. But but really importantly is the story. It's an incredibly moving novel about a daughter searching for her mother after she disappears in LA's Koreatown. The story is told in an interesting way. It's by both the mother and the daughter, so you get both points of view. It's an immigrant story about finding and losing the American dream, but it's also an emotional novel about the ties between a mother and her daughter. So there's a lot of really moving and relatable pieces to this story, and it will simply sit with the reader long after they're done. And it's perfect for book clubs. And just a shout out, you have to follow Nancy on Instagram. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Thank you.
All right, so I have the privilege of giving you all a sneak peek at a Winter 22 title. Next slide, please, drum roll. Author Jacqueline Michard, of course, has a very storied writing career, but as you all know, her first book, The Deep End of the Ocean, was the novel chosen by a little thing called Oprah's Book Club, the celebrity book club that spawned all celebrity book clubs. And I bring this up because I want to say that Jacqueline Michard's still got it. So her forthcoming novel, The Good Son, is an incredibly meaty book club pick. By the way, I gauge a book club book contender by how fast I want to pick up the phone and text my girlfriends after I finish reading a book. And in this case, I wanted to text them before I was even finished because I was angry about many things. And Jacqueline knows all this. I've already talked to her about it. The Good Son is about a woman whose 21-year-old son was just released from prison after he was convicted of killing the love of his life, a crime he doesn't remember because he was strung out on drugs that night. But he confessed to it and he remains anguished over it. The story is incredibly nuanced with discussions of reintegration, complex family dynamics, white privilege. There's even an underlying mystery. But ultimately, this is the story of a mother who is navigating very conflicting feelings as she welcomes her only child back into her home. So as you can see here, the book obviously is getting a ton of buzz, but I think Christina Baker-Klein really hit the nail on the head when she called The Good Son quietly devastating. You will meet Jacqueline in a moment, but we have an author video that goes into the inspiration behind the novel. It's a powerful story, and we wanted to share it with you.
Bear with me, I'm just going to do a little quick share. Yeah. Sorry, talk amongst yourselves. I'm almost there, I promise.
Love technology.
Yeah, here we go. You can see the screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Can you
at a big writers conference when the woman in front of me dropped.
Can you guys hear it? Can someone? Thumbs up, okay.
Yes, yep, we can hear it.
By an encounter I'll never forget. The Good Son was inspired by an encounter I'll never forget. I was in the coffee line at a big writers conference when the woman in front of me dropped her book. I picked it up and handed it back to her, and I asked if she was there for the event. But she said no, she wasn't. She was visiting her son, who was in prison nearby. And then I thought, oh no, don't tell me why. But she did. He was incarcerated for his role in the death of the only girl he ever loved. How could I turn away from her? I thought of my own 5 sons and that terrible head game that you play sometimes. Would you rather lose the one you love or have the one you love do something so horrible that you would be the only one left in the world who could love him? That's the choice that Thea faces in my novel. I hope you care about it. I hope you think about it, because in life it turns out that just when you think you know everything, that's when you don't. Thanks.
Another switcheroo.
Thanks, Lindsay. Also, I have to say that is maybe the 3rd version of an author video I've seen of this story, and she has something new to say every time, and I feel like I'm always emotional for a different reason. So that's incredible. Thank you, Jacqueline, for sharing that with us. We are now at the author portion of the program. Welcome all, and you'll get to hear from Jacqueline directly, of course. We have on deck 4 amazing fiction authors. We're trying out a new format today. When we thought we'd have 5 authors, unfortunately Nancy Kim is sick, so she's not able to join us. But we had wanted to find a way to highlight all of them in a fun way in our usual very tight half hour. So they received prompts ahead of time. Next slide, please. I did want to share with you all the prompts as well so that you're in on the antics. I think this will be really fun. The authors are very well prepared. We are going to answer every question round robin style. So if we are all ready, can you all, yep. Let's see.
I got to do a little switcheroo, so.
No worries, take your time. Take your time. We're really on time, guys. This is great. I'm very happy.
So,
Author, so you're prepared. We're gonna do 2 questions in one actually, so this is good. So I'm going to ask you shortly to let us know your name and book and one thing that you want your readers to know about you. So be prepared. And probably Naima, I'm gonna have you go first. Ooh, I see them, I see them. They're coming in. Hi all.
everyone should be here now.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay, so much. So we are going to go ahead and start with an intro. Authors, again, let us know your name, your book, and one thing that you want your readers to know about you. Naima, can you start us off?
Sure. Okay, my name is Naima Simone, and my book is Christmas in Rose Bend. And the one thing I want authors to know about me is that I'm the daughter of a pastor who preaches a mean Song of Solomon. So I was meant to write about love and romance and passion. And I know this to be fact because he has told me so, and that I owe him all the credit for my writing career.
You do owe him all the credit. And please read the Rose Bend series. They're really wonderful, you guys. But we'll get to that in a minute. Lisa Unger, you're up next. Hi.
Hi, I'm Lisa Unger. My book is Last Girl Ghosted. And the one thing I want my readers and also this audience to know about me is that, you know, most writers are readers first. And that was definitely true for me. And mainly because my mom was a librarian. And I got my great love of story from her because she was just an avid reader. And our home was always filled with shelves and shelves of books. You know, we were both like sort of literary omnivores. You know, she read everything from like the classics to Sidney Sheldon to, you know, to V.C. Andrews. And there was no censorship in my house at all. If I could reach it, I could read it. And my mom, like, to this day, she's like, I just thought things were going to go over your head, but they didn't. And then my mom used to work the night shift at the library. So she used to work that like after dinner shift. And I used to go with her and do my homework among the stacks in the library. So I kind of feel like that's where I grew up. I grew up in a library and, you know, it was the perfect place for, you know, kind of a bookish, shy girl like myself.
Oh my gosh. So basically we can credit Naima's father and Lisa's mother.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
They would demand that, I think. Yes.
They deserve it, as they should. Jacqueline Machar, we get to hear from you directly.
Hello. Yes, my name is Jacqueline Machard, and the title of my book is The Good Son. And one thing that I want readers to know about me, and this is going to sound gorpy, but bear with me, all right, is that I will never write a book that couldn't be shared with an intelligent 14-year-old. And that doesn't mean that my stories are watered down or censored in any way. I've never had that experience at all. They can be sad and frightening and difficult and suspenseful, but nothing in them is going ever to be gratuitous. So what it means is that if there's a shock in the book, that shock is organic and it rises from the necessity, the emotional necessity of the plot. But I really want readers of all ages, from like teenagers to seniors, to be able to enjoy this book, and ideally even in families to enjoy it together. So I'm sticking to it.
I love it. And I also love that. So I also market to teen librarians. So I love a good crossover novel, and this will definitely be going to them as well. So you came to the right place. And last but not least, Viola Shipman.
Hi, everybody. I'm Viola Shipman, and my book is The Secret of Snow. And I think the one thing I want everyone to know about me is that I'm actually a man. So the reason the biggest question I receive is why I chose a pen name for my fiction. And, I think first and foremost, I want readers and librarians in this audience to know is that my grandma Shipman, Viola, sacrificed everything for our family. My grandparents were working poor. My grandpa Shipman was an ore miner. When that work dried up, he raked rocks in farmers' fields. My grandma Shipman stitched overalls at a local factory until she couldn't stand straight. They saved spare change in an old crock in their garage. And when it got full, they took it to the bank and started a college fund for my mom. She became the first in our family to graduate college. They understood what life meant, and they understood what was most important, as we've all been reminded these last couple of years, and that is each other and our health and our friends and our family and having a roof over our heads. The simple things, as my grandma Shipman used to always say. One of her favorite phrases was, life's as short as one blink of God's eye, but in that blink, we too often forget what matters most. And again, we've been reminded of that. And that's what I hope my books do, is remind readers of what's most important in life. And that is us, each other.
I love that. And I also love that the rest of our authors didn't know you were a man. So seeing their surprise and delight was really fun. Yeah, I didn't even do that on purpose. It just happened like that. You're like our superhero with the secret identity. We do have a diverse range of books this fall. But moving on to the next question, there was this theme that I saw coming up in a lot of the titles, though it manifested in very different ways. Authors, I'm going to ask you to tell us what homecoming means in your book, and we'll stay with Wade for this one if you want to start us off.
Yeah, this is such a great question. I think every single novel that I write centers on home or coming home, and I think it's, for me, deeply personal, and also motivates me creatively. I grew up in the Missouri Ozarks in the 70s and 80s as a gay kid who loved Irma Bombeck and wearing ascots and going to the library. And those were not popular things for rural boys in the 1970s to do. And home, was where I felt safe. It was where I felt protected. I grew up in the kitchens and sewing rooms and beauty parlors and log cabins with my grandmothers. And they connected our family history, but they also made me feel safe through the food they cooked and the clothes they made for me and the quilts. All of those things made me whole. But as I grew older in the Ozarks, I didn't feel safe anymore, and I kind of ran. I spent my life running, not really toward anything, but away from things. And it wasn't until I came out and I got married and I moved to a little resort town here in Saugatuck, Michigan, where I now live, that I recalibrated what home meant for me. So many of the things I loved about small town life were represented here in Michigan, but also reinvented for me. So all of those aspects that I took kind of refocused themselves on me here in Michigan. And, but The Secret of Snow focuses, that's the entire theme of the book, is about, a woman who loses her sister at an early age and has to return home to the place that she ran from. And, the theme is, we spend our lives running as far and as fast as we can from our past and all of the pain, but sometimes until we confront that as honestly and courageously as we can, we'll never be safe and we'll never be home again. So, I hope that theme really resonates with readers.
So I think that transitions very well to Lisa Unger, actually. She's nodding, I know, because I love the way that she tackles a homecoming of sorts in the context of a thriller, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and homecoming is a theme that I also find again and again in my work. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we traveled around a lot when I was a kid. We were, I was always the new kid. I always kind of felt like I was on the outside looking in. And so the idea of home is like, it always seems like kind of an idea, or like maybe like an island that, you never get to visit in a weird way. And the theme sort of comes up in Last Girl Ghosted in, always in ways that I don't expect, of course. This, like, my writing is very organic. And so when these things come up, I'm not really sure about them until I start talking about them. But in the case of, Ren, she's a Vice columnist, and she's actually running from her home, from her childhood home, from her past, from a dark and abusive and very unsafe past. And so in her life, in her adult life, she has like created a home. She's bought this distressed townhome and is refurbishing it. She's created a life filled with friends that feel like family. So in a way, like, she's looking for this kind of homecoming. She's like the kind of homecoming that you have when you build, your adult life to be different from the way you grew up. So that's very much the theme from that. But in the course of the novel, she does have to return to that place. She has to return to a place that she has hidden from and run from and sort of denied. And because of what's happening in her present, she can no longer deny where she came from and how it has formed her. She has to face her past in order, to claim her present and really create the life in the way of like somebody who comes from abuse and trauma. You have to claim yourself in order to break that chain for the moment that you're in. And so that's very much the theme of Last Girl Ghosted.
I love that. And I think this idea of reclaiming a childhood home is a good way to transition into Jacqueline's book, because she takes that to a different level, a very complicated level, if you want to speak to that.
Well, it is. It's a complicated story because homecoming in the story means literally Stefan coming home at the age of 20 after 3 years in prison. But it also means restoring a shattered family. And that really doesn't happen until Stefan and his mother finally experience and recognize the truth of what happened on the night that his beloved, the only girl he ever loved, Belinda, was killed. But all of the task of trying to reintroduce him to a community that wants nothing to do with him, and a family, in fact, his own extended family who rejects him, falls on Thea. And Thea would not think of herself, she would not describe herself as the traditional wife and mother. She's a very independent woman. She's a professor. She kept her own name, but that's exactly what she has to do, is to lead Stefan forward into the community, almost as she did when she took him to kindergarten for the first time. So she's cooking comfort food. She's cooking macaroni and cheese and trying to make the house feel like home and trying to fill in all the empty emotional spaces that her husband, Jep, doesn't even realize are there most of the time. And so she's literally living the question in the book. Could you go on loving the person you love most if the person you love most did the worst possible thing? And the answer for a mother, I know because I have 9 kids of my own, is everyone does that. Everyone's eyebrows go, that you would be the only one who could. And the truth for Thea, she doesn't know what she's really searching for. She doesn't know what the truth really is in her book. But but she keeps the faith throughout the whole process, throughout that long, long walk toward home.
And I wish Nancy Kim was here, because Jacqueline, you get at the heart of just that complicated relationship between mothers and what childhood home means. I think it's very complicated, and that happens throughout some of the other books as well, but that's okay. We'll have Nancy back on another panel. I saved Naima for last because I think there's such a really nice contrast between this idea of restoring a home, the way Jacqueline and all the others talked about, and what the character of Nessa is doing in Rose Bend. If you want to talk about that, Naima.
Yeah. For the idea of homecoming and Christmas in Rose Bend, it's not as literal, I guess. And I didn't even realize that until actually you pointed it out. And so much so that when I was answering the question, I actually had to call my go-to, which is my father, because he's like such a deep thinker and he didn't even pay me to say that. And so I was discussing the book with him, and he was like, okay, let me think about it. And when he came back, we were really discussing the book, because home isn't really as much as a place for her, because she's kind of displaced, because she's gone through so much with losing her mother, and then finding out that the person she thought was her father isn't really her father. And so she doesn't even, her identity is kind of lost now. And she has a strained relationship with her half sister, who really isn't her sister. And there's a secret there, because she believes her sister doesn't know. And so she doesn't really have a home, and where she's going is not home. And so home is not a place, but what she comes to find out, it's not just a place, it's a state of mind, it's a feeling, it's a person. And so homecoming in this book is really about new beginnings. In this book, in Christmas in Rose Bend, Nessa arrives in this town, and she's broken in her heart. She's brokenhearted. Her heart is actually hardened because of the grief and the secrets and the lies. And like I said, she has this strained relationship with her half sister, who's a sulky teen. And she has the heavy burden of these secrets, of this paternity secrets. And so she's hurting. Both her and her sister are hurting. And she's carrying this emotional baggage, both of them are, and neither one of them trusts easily. They don't trust each other, and they've both lost their way. And Nessa, especially, because everything she's believed about herself, about her life, they're lies. And she not only feels like she's been living a lie, but that herself, that she's a lie. She doesn't know who she is anymore. So she comes to this town, and it's like, first of all, she's a Scrooge. She's an ER nurse. She doesn't like Christmas. And this place is just bursting with Christmas. And she's meeting these unique people who she thinks is as crazy as the town. And she's getting to know, while she's there, she's getting to know her sister in a new way. They're beginning to see each other in this brand new way. And she's falling in love with this town despite herself during the holidays. And she's falling in love with this man who she never thought she would fall in love again. And she's seeing new beginnings. And Rose Bend, this town, is the perfect place for this, because it seems like people come to this town and they come there seeking new starts, a soft place to land, and a new start. And so this town, and the motto of this town, actually, when you drive into it, is a place where no one knows strangers. And it actually enfolds strangers into the very fabric of itself. And that's not even the person that she's fallen in love with. It's like none more true than for Will Dennison, because his family is made up of not just biological siblings, but adoptive siblings. And they literally have given these children new beginnings. And so, and also himself, he went to war, he served in the service, and he came home injured. And when he came home, he had to actually reinvent himself. So he knows about new starts. And so there's no one more perfect for her to fall in love with. And so really, new beginnings in this book, in Christmas in Rose Bend, is about the summation of hurts and sorrows of the past, and the beginning of something greater and more fulfilling and hopeful and joyful. Homecoming means finally letting go of old baggage of the past and embracing sadness and exchanging sadness for joy, and pain for healing, and fear for faith, and bitterness for joy.
I love that. I think you get at the heart of why I wanted to bring all these authors together, because I think all of you talk about this, creating these new communities, or yeah, these new families essentially, and whether or not you're staying with your old family or coming to a new family, which I think is really beautiful. And I think it doesn't have to be literal at all. And for a lot of people, it's not. So thank you for that. We're gonna go to the next question, which is, authors, what would you like your readers to take away from your book? Naima, is it okay if we stay with you for the first?
Sure. So the one thing I would love for readers to take away is that love is the greatest, most caring, and most patient of parents. It refuses to leave anyone behind. It refuses to leave any of us orphaned. It draws all of us into this great family that isn't determined by DNA, but by compassion, understanding, acceptance, and of course, love. Oh, and one last thing, because Nessa is like the Scrooge character of this book, A Christmas Carol in 1951 that stars Alistair Sim is the best Christmas Carol. And I said what I said, and you can just, it's the best.
I didn't know this was so polarizing. I need to watch. Jacqueline, what would you like your readers to take away?
Mine also is about love. And I guess the most important thing for me that I would like readers to take away from that is that there are many characters in this book who think they understand things. They think they know what the limits of love are and the boundaries of love. And I guess the lesson in this book is that you never know what your limits are until you are pushed to the absolute extremes, and you have to learn more and give more and feel more than you ever thought was possible for you. And that is no picnic. I mean, it's no day at the beach, like the beach behind me here, though I'm not really at the beach. It is, but in the end, like all those horrible things that we go through, it has the potential for being redemptive. There's this woman who I know, and I follow her exploits on social media because she's always climbing this mountain, and she's, saving this seal or something like that. And she says, you have to always run to the rescue with love. And sometimes peace is a long time coming. Sometimes home is really, really much farther away than you imagine it to be. But this is the part that really sounds like the refrigerator magnet. If you accept uncritically that the only reason that we showed up here in this, and by that I mean on this planet, is to look after each other, to be of service to each other, then you get the whole thing.
Love that. Lisa Unger, what about you?
I just can't believe this theme. It's so it's so endemic to Last Girl Ghosted as well. So I wrote this book during the pandemic, and like the world was in chaos, right? It's on fire. It still is, like all around me. And but writing has always been like an escape hatch for me. That's always where I go to metabolize the darkness that I perceive in the world. So daily during that really dark time, I was losing myself in the world that I was creating. And because of the way I write, without an outline and without knowing who's going to show up or what they're going to do day to day, a lot of pieces from what I was experiencing in my day-to-day life and what I was perceiving kind of wound up in the book. So of course I didn't write a pandemic book, but I did write a book during the pandemic. And in the rereading and editing of Last Girl Ghosted, I was aware of this kind of impending sense of doom, that we kind of get from these like snippets of newscasts and and Ren's father, who was a doomsday prepper and a collapsist, somebody who believed that the world had already ended and we were just, late getting the memo. So there's this impending sense of doom and destruction. But in the end, Ren's always kind of hearing that voice, but in the end that she realizes that she has to choose love. So unlike her father, who wanted to walk away from the burning world, Ren wants to stay in it and hold up the people that she loves. She wants to help the people who turn to her for advice. She's an advice columnist, and she wants to fight for the future, our future, whatever that may be. And, that's really what I hope people take away from Last Girl Ghosted. You don't get to give up on the world. You have to stay and fight for it. And there's only one way to do that. And love is the way.
And this is why I wanted Lisa on this panel. Thank you. And last but not least, Wade.
I think the thing I want readers to take away from this is that, in the midst of all of the holiday cheer, there's rarely room for grief. And again, it's something we know more vividly over the last couple of years. The Secret of Snow is a holiday and a winter novel, but it's also, I think, my most deeply personal novel to date, because like the main character, Sunny, I lost a sibling, my brother Todd, at a very young age. And as you can imagine, that not only shatters a family, but it shatters your holidays and the way that you celebrate, and often don't celebrate the holidays for years to come. And there's a story that I shared with the group that, I didn't think our family would have Christmas again. And I walked in because my brother Todd was the king of Christmas. He used to go out and cut a pine tree in the woods. He would drag it in and put it in the stand. And before any of us got there, he would cover it in tinsel and have it ready for us to decorate. And I walked in one evening and my mother, I'll try not to get emotional, had gone out into our woods, cut a tree down, dragged it in, put it in the stand and covered it in tinsel. And my mom was a nurse and a hospice nurse. And she said, why are we all trying so hard to forget about your brother and that he ever existed? He made us who we are, and we should celebrate that every day. So that changed me, and it changed the course of my life in many ways. And I wanted to write a book that showed, especially, we've lost, 600,000 plus people to COVID over the last couple of years. Their holidays will never be the same. There will be empty holes under the tree. There will be empty chairs at the table. There's going to be empty holes in our hearts forever. And oftentimes, as I experienced and my family did, when you lose someone during the holidays, all you want to do is hide. You want the holidays to go as quickly as Santa's sleigh and just pray that January comes as quickly as possible. And I hope this book's message is, let's not let that happen. Let's reach out to those who need a hug. Let them know that the names that we've lost still matter. They're not numbers. They're names, like my brother Todd or my father-in-law George, who I lost to COVID as well. We need each other. The foundational themes in my books, again, we need each other more than ever, and more so at the holidays. So I hope that we can remember that through the book and this holiday season.
Thank you for sharing that. You guys really made this more encouraging than I thought this panel would be. I'm not gonna lie, even though I saw some of your answers beforehand, but this is very profound and I'm very appreciative right now. We are almost at time. I think maybe I will go ahead and skip to the lightning round question. We're gonna talk about alcohol because that's how I roll. So you may or may not know my informal motto is cocktails in the library with a question mark, because I don't want to get in trouble. And also librarians feel very strongly about that question mark. They have opinions. Authors, what cocktail goes best with your book? Lisa, let's start with you because you have both alcoholic and non-alcoholic.
Oh, Yeah, I didn't really have a good, I mean, even though I am a cocktail girl myself, I consider myself to be a Cosmo girl, even though I know that's like very uncool. Like I can't help it. That's my favorite drink. I love a good Cosmo. Thank you, Kate. And so that's like sort of, I think you could have a Cosmo pretty much for any reason, right? And I guess at the beginning of the book, Ren is just drinking a club soda, right? Because she's like paranoid about ever losing control, so she rarely drinks. But when she first meets Bailey, who's the detective investigating her boyfriend's disappearance, she has a triple espresso with almond milk, which she says in there is the perfect drink for a caffeine addict and with a dairy allergy, that's me as well.
Love it.
But I suppose if you really needed like a very manly drink, maybe you could pick Blanton's on the rocks, because that's a very manly cocktail if you were looking for that, like as opposed to the Cosmo. Maybe that would be like a good pairing, Cosmo and Blanton's, because that's what my husband and I always drink when we're out.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. Jacqueline, what about you?
I think that I pictured Thea, the main character in the book, and her best friend, who is the character that so many people in the book love, Julie, who is her lovely and generous best friend, having mudslides, which are sort of like, I guess they're sort of like chocolate milkshakes, only with Bailey's and Kahlua and vodka in them, so that I'm not much of a drinker. But when I've had one of these at Christmas time, you have one and you think that was great. And then suddenly you're lying under the Christmas tree, making funny faces at the lights, because they are very, they're wickedly potent. But I think that they would have it together and then stay inside and not go driving or anything like that, and talk about the things that are essential between people who've been friends since the 6th grade.
The best friend is also a great reason to read The Good Son. She's such a great character. I really love her. Wade, let's go to you.
Booze is a very important part of my life. Caffeine and a little liquor. It's funny because in The Secret of Snow Sunny, the whole book starts off, she finds out she's being replaced at 50 with an AI meteorologist that'll never age or gain weight or renegotiate his contract. She gets blitzed and shows up on air, and everything goes downhill from there. To me, Lisa's my girl, because I put down 2 drinks. A fresh cranberry Cosmo is one of my favorite holiday cocktails, and it's really just really good. You can pulp the cranberries and make it just like a regular Cosmo, and it's delicious and it's pretty and it's lethal. It looks good with what I wear. And then the other, Michigan, the book is set in northern Michigan around Traverse City. And if you're not familiar with Michigan, northern Michigan has some of the best wineries in the world. And one of my favorites is called Black Star Farms. And it's in Sutton's Bay, which is this adorable resort town just right outside of Traverse City. And they have one of the best dry Rieslings in the globe. Very dry, it's terrific for a holiday party, for appetizers, for a meal. So, I can go Cosmo to wine like that.
I also didn't know about the wineries in Michigan until I read Secret of Snow. So that was an education for me. Thank you for that. It's important information here. And last but not least, Naima.
Now, I'm not saying that I did a lot of method research with this. I'm not saying that, okay? But my cocktail was eggnog with Baileys, okay? And there's a reason, because this town, it's like, it takes place in an inn, and it's a family-friendly inn. So I'm like, the kids can drink the eggnog spiced with nutmeg, and the adults can sit around with the eggnog spiced with a lot more with the Baileys and pretend like it's just eggnog, but they're getting a lot more than eggnog. And again, not speaking from personal experience, totally speaking from personal experience. It is so delicious.
And now I want an eggnog with
Oh,
booze.
it's so good. So good.
Okay, I kept all of you really long. Thank you for staying with me. I'm so sorry that you stayed long. You had to stay longer, but I would love to keep this going actually, but I'll get to that in a second. Thank you, authors. And thank you, librarians, for joining us. If you don't follow us on Twitter at HQ for Libraries, please do, because we'll be tweeting out links and recipes for the foods, drinks, and home rituals that the authors didn't get to. We will tweet those out. So be sure to follow us, HQ for Libraries. And as always, all registrants are automatically entered into a raffle where you'll have a chance to win print copies of most of the titles mentioned today. So keep an eye on your inboxes next week, just in case. Have a great weekend, everyone. And I hope to see you all at the next Bookstravaganza.